Happy Halloween and welcome to 5P Designs. Today I will be making a spooky spell book using Dollar Tree books. You could also use a large hardback dictionary if you happen to have one, some stickers, necklaces, plastic eyeballs, LED lights, and some tan foam, and plus a few other odds and ends, but I'll mention those as the video goes along. This first step you see me doing, you won't have to do if you happen to have one of those hardcover big dictionaries. I did not, so I purchased books from the Dollar Tree and I'm gluing them together to make one big thick book. To do that, I cut off the front cover and back cover of the two hardcover books, and I cut the middle book down to size because they were larger than the other two. So hopefully you have a dictionary and you can skip this step. Not that it was hard, but if you can make it easier, make it easier. Now we're going to be adding some eyeballs to our spell book. So to do that, I split them in half. So there's a little hole in each of the little eyeballs, and I just kind of wiggled my scissors in there and just cut. It wasn't the easiest. There might be a smarter way, but that's how I did it. And now I am taking my drill and putting a hole in the middle of the eyeball. And again, there's probably a safer way to do this, so Mom, don't look. But it worked and I kept all of my fingers intact. So I'm using 3 eyeballs from my spell book. You could add more if you feel inclined to do so. And then I'm just gonna position them on my book to see where I like them best. And then I'll be using my drill again to drill a hole in the book, and you will see why in just a minute. Magic of video editing, that was a quick minute. So what I've done is I've drilled that hole, I have my LED lights, and I'm going to poke that up through so that I have glowing eyeballs on my spell book. So I'll do that for all 3 eyeballs, and then the next step will be to cut a pocket inside the book so that my battery pack will fit inside of there. Maybe you're smarter than me and you wouldn't do this, but when you go to fit the hole for your battery pack, make sure you leave room for the button to turn it on and the wire sticking out of the top. I just for some reason traced around the box and cut out that hole and then realized I needed to cut it bigger. Not a big deal, but save yourself a step and cut the hole bigger than you think you need it. Now I took my drill and I drilled a hole in each corner. This made it easier to cut with the scissors because I had room for the blade of the scissors to go in. You probably don't have to do this, but I found it to be a little bit easier. And now I'm just cutting until I get enough pages cut so that the battery pack sits mostly flush into the book. So lots of footage of me just cutting. I'm gonna cut out most of it because, well, it's kind of boring. Now we will get into the fun part soon, I promise. I just wanted to show you how the lights fit in, and then the eyeball will sit right over that. And I'll open the book and you will be able to see the battery pack all flush sitting inside the book. And when I go to finish it, I will arrange the wires so that the book closes nicely and everything is nice and lit up. Now that we know that everything's going to fit in nicely, we can go ahead and glue our eyeballs to the front cover of the book. I'm using hot glue here, works perfectly fine. I thought my eyeballs needed a little something, and that's where the craft foam comes into place. Now this is a nice fleshy colored craft foam. You could use black or green or whatever you want. And I'm just kind of fitting it around the eyeball, seeing where I think it looks best, and just cutting a rough square. Most of it is going to be covered in our next step, so you don't need to be precise at all. Now that our eyeballs are all set, we'll be moving on to covering the book. I'm using brown craft paper. You can find that at Dollar Tree. You could also use newspaper if you have that on hand. Just tear it into strips and crumble it up in your hand, and then we'll start covering. To apply the paper to the book, I'm first using hot glue, just squirting it all over the book and arranging my paper. And I'm not doing it in a precise way. You want it to look kind of rough and super textured, so just have fun with it. Here it is, all covered. I think it looks neat just how it is, but the next step we're going to do is add some decoupage over this just to give it more texture and to give a better surface for painting it. So just take a sponge paintbrush and dab it all over the book. You want a nice thick layer, and like I said, lots and lots of texture. Now give your decoupage medium a good amount of time to dry, and once it's dry, take any paint color that you like. I'm using DIY paint because I love it. If you've watched my videos before, you know that. And just take another sponge paintbrush and start dabbing away until you cover it completely. Now the next step, I'll be taking a darker colored paint, this one is black, and a dry paintbrush and going over the book again. This will give it even more texture and make it look aged and weathered. Now before the paint dries, take some glitter in your hand and sprinkle it all over your book to give it that magical little flair. Now I think our book needs to say spells on it, so what I'm doing is I'm taking a piece of ribbon and writing the word spells on it with a black Sharpie marker. Writing the words on the ribbon just gives me a guideline, because what I'll be doing is taking that necklace I showed you earlier, cutting off all the little plastic bones, and then I'll glue those onto the words so it looks a little bit creepier and just a little bit more Halloween-y. You've got all your bones in place, take your ribbon and glue it to the front of your book. I did mine at a little bit of an angle. Now for this next step, I'm using the Dollar Tree stickers I showed you earlier. I'm just using the bats and I've painted them black, and I'm gluing them to the corners of the book. If you can't see what these are that I'm gluing on, it's the little plastic skulls from the necklace. Real quick, this is a little cream cheese tub and I'm using it to make a tiny little cauldron. And going back to our spell book, I'm going to show you how it looks when I put the battery pack in and LED lights. So I'm just going to fit it into that little hole we cut earlier, and then I'm going to take that painter's tape to secure the wires so that it's not falling out of the book all the time, and to make sure that they stay in the little holes that we drilled earlier. Here's how the little cauldron turned out. I used the remaining pieces of the necklace to add some feet and embellishment to it, added some green fuzzies to look like a bubbling potion, and done. Next up, we need some coffee, or you can use tea as well if you're a tea drinker. And we're going to take it and apply it to our pages in the book so that they look older and worn and weathered. Since we're on the subject of Halloween, I thought I'd go ahead and show you the mantle I did for Halloween using some of the projects that I did in past videos and some things that I had on hand.